Okay, we've got another trade rumor. We know that Troy Weaver loves trades, so we're kind of looking at the different trades, seeing what we might be able to do. So we've made a few videos on this. Make sure you check out the other videos that we've made on different trades that we think could go down. Here's one that we found that we are liking a little bit more and more as we've kind of looked at it longer. So Craig, for
Maybe.
this, it's the Hawks. We would send Grant to the Hawks for the
Yep.
16th pick and Bogdanovich. What are your thoughts on this trade?
Okay, so when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, that's not bad, right? Put a shooting guard next to Cade. That's just a good shooter, and he's not going to really be a playmaker that much, but he's a guy that honestly he did some good things. You know what I mean? Like he's done a few good things. I mean he has good production. I guess is the word I want to say for it. I mean he's had good production. He was honestly probably the second best scorer on a Hawks team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. But then there's something else that I think has to be shared with this. Um, the dude's got a bad knee.
Mm.
He's got knee problems, and I also wanted to show some of the stats here so everybody could see that. Last year, 15.1 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He's going to be 30 years old, 30 years old in 2 months by the time the NBA season starts. So he's not old. He's making $18 million this upcoming year and the year after. So we'd have a guy that's on the books for an extra year. I'm going to be honest with you. You said at the top of the video that we're liking it more and more. I'm liking it less and less the more that I talk about it.
Uh-huh.
Because here's the way I look at it. You have a guy that could be a good rotation piece, when healthy, by the way, but he started having this knee trouble in their playoff run. And then last year never could get it right. So every article that I read about this, like, well, he's got the knee problem that he's going to have to get right in the offseason. It's like, okay, it's been lingering for a year and a half. Like, I don't know
Okay.
if it does get right. And he's a good finishing piece to a team that already has the pieces in place to make a good run. I don't think he's the piece you add to all of a sudden compete.
Yeah, and I think because we did another video about Colin Sexton, and that's like the perfect example of now you've got a guy at 23 points per game, 23 years old. That trade taking, getting rid of Jerami Grant for him, that feels better. When you look at an aging player with a little history and with his knee, and he's not an elite enough in any area to really justify getting rid of Grant.
Right.
I think we like that he can, like you said, he can do things. He can do things and he can shoot okay, but it just doesn't feel like it's the greatest thing. And I'm talking myself out of it too now because
Good for you.
I think the Colin Sexton video has screwed us up. And if you didn't see that, go check that out. We talk about Colin Sexton, and that's one where we were just, as we got to the end of that video, hey, give me a guy for Jerami Grant that can score. We got excited about that. So when we see a player that's not able to get, he's not a scorer. Like he's not going to be a guy that we can come right in. Let's go put him next to Kate. It's going to be great. So that's a situation where I don't know if I love this trade anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if I love it. And I think what ends up being the best part of this trade is the 16th pick.
Yeah,
So
true.
I think it's one of those things when the Hawks are on the clock, if you have a guy that you love, like for example, like Sadiq Bey was the 16th pick, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
No. He was 19. I think Isaiah Stewart was 16. Sorry. Or somewhere in there. But like if there's a guy you still love, like maybe you love Mark Williams from Duke. I mean, a lot of people say that he could be the next Rudy Gobert. And he's still sitting there at 16. He's a guy who's 7'2", long wingspan, has proven that he can score at an efficient enough rate, but he gets rebounds and just gets an absurd amount of blocks. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, so he's one of those guys where you're like, all right, well, he could be our center of the future. So we're going to go for that. And we're going to let Grant go because we already have Keegan Murray with the 5th pick. Or, these are the things that I think about where it's like, okay, it does make a little more sense to me at that point.
Well, we've
If
been
you like the 16th pick, but in that point, I'd rather have the 14th pick from the Cavs or the 13th or the 15th pick from the Charlotte Hornets and do a trade before you get to this point.
Yeah, it's a great point because we've kind of forgotten, right? We have the 5th pick and then we have a 2nd round pick. So you forget these teens picks that we're
Yeah.
not really paying attention to, but you make a great point. We've found some great players there and
Yeah.
you don't want to like just dismiss those picks
No,
outside of, because we just talked about outside of the top 10, you really lose that elite player. But boy, that's okay. I mean, that's all right. You cannot dismiss these these picks that could be okay for us.
it's just hard with the NBA draft because it ebbs and flows so much each year on what talent you have available at those pick numbers. It's so much different than for example, say the NFL draft.
Yeah.
If you're picking in the first round, you are like, no, he better start day one. Like he better start day one and be a good player. And in the NBA, like that's a top 5, top 10 pick, maybe.
Mm,
Right. And then when you get beyond that, especially in some drafts, it's just like we just hope he's a player that's going to be in our rotation year
yeah.
one and then contribute a little bit better year two and beyond. And so if you really love a guy and you're like, hey, we've pegged this as the guy and he's still there and you can get a good player. The other trade scenario in this was Danilo Gallinari. And the reason he was there is because he only has 5 million guaranteed. I don't know if it's next year or the year after. So you could trade for him and then that could create cap space. So I think that's the other side of it where like if you're not thinking Bogdanovich is a good enough player or something like that, I don't know. There's also thoughts of what about DeAndre Hunter, and the 16th pick, and you give him Jerami Grant. So there's a lot of different trade packages with the Hawks that might work. But I think really what the crux of this is the 16th pick good enough where you're like, yeah, I'll give up Jerami Grant for that. I'm
mm.
not quite there.
No, well, I don't think we're not, because I think because we've been linked to the 7th pick too. That gets you a little excited, and
I
then to
think
drop.
I don't know, that might be reaching for it, but
Yeah,
like I
but
do get what you're saying.
yeah,
I
now
do, and
you're
that
like,
makes it so much harder.
I don't think that's good. So yeah, parting with Jeremy Grant's an interesting one because um he's good enough to get a, like, this is where it's like, all right, Troy, need you, man, because
Need you.
Jeremy Grant is good enough and really an important piece for some teams. And can you find that team, marry that up, and make a good trade? And that's
Make a
that's
good
gonna be
trade.
difficult because he's not an elite where everybody wants their hands on him, but he could be huge for a couple teams, and you got to find those teams, and not, because those teams are not gonna, the weaknesses, they need a player, they have holes, but they're not going to come right out and be like, we're so desperate for him, make a good trade. That's where Troy has to find that out, make sure
Yep.
he's massaging those trades and makes a good trade for us, because the Jeremy Grant piece is just, it's huge, really. I mean, it's a
It
big
it
part of
is
what we're
huge.
going to do. Yeah.
And I think here's the thing too, like, I like Jeremy Grant. I know you like Jeremy Grant. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's not a bad player at all. He's versatile. He hasn't been super durable the last 2 years, but you have to wonder how much is that attributed to tanking. But, like,
Yeah.
here's the thing about Jeremy Grant. What's hurting his value and what's hurting Pistons fans wanting to keep him around is that I want 4 years, 112 million. Like, that's what it's just like, ooh, or 4 years, 100, yeah, 112, 28 million a year. And all of a sudden you're like, Jeremy Grant's good. He's not $28 million
That's the
a
problem.
year good from the age of 29 to 33.
That's
I
the
mean, I'm not
problem.
saying that's old. That's not your peak either. 29, 30 is fine, but then you're definitely going to be declining in those last 2 years, not massively or fast necessarily, but you will be declining. So those are the kind of things for me where I'm just like, it's a money issue. And I would like to make a trade where we're either getting a very good player in return, like a Sexton, right? Or something like that. Or you're getting a guy whose contract is off the books after next year. So
Right.
you can use that money in other ways. And Bogdan Bogdanovic in this trade doesn't do that. So I think I'm out on it for that reason.
Yep. No, it's a great video just to look at some different, because I think you make a great point. The Jeremy Grant to a 7 pick is, I don't know. And there's some of these different, like, almost non-realistic. Hope they come true, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't really know. This is kind of that mid-range. Man, is this kind of a trade that would go down? So it's
Mm-hmm.
good to look at these, see if we would do it. Let us know in the comments if you would do this, what you like about this trade or what you don't like about this trade.
Yep.
And to make sure you subscribe. We make Pistons and Lions videos. A lot going on right now. So make sure you subscribe. Means you'll get our latest videos when they come out. They'll just be right up there on top so you see them. So make sure you subscribe. And we will see all of you on the next one.